You're listening to World of Empowerment Radio, your station for practical spirituality in a changing world. And here are your hosts, Aingeal Rose and Ahonu.
You are very welcome. I am Ahonu and this is my lovely Aingeal Rose. And you may well laugh, we look like a right pair of hobos, don't we? With the hats, and of course we're in our outdoor office, which is the car, which is happening too frequently these days. But let's explain. We want to look into the Akashic Records today to talk about karma and reincarnation. And what was the other thing we wanted to ask about?
That's basically it so far.
Original sin and that kind of thing, going way back. And we have to do it in the car because we're in climate change, whether you like it or not, and it's 111 degrees outside. It's cooled down very slightly now. We're looking at the temperature gauge on the car, and it was 100 degrees just when we got in. It's now dropped to 97 degrees. It's still hot, and so we're here to cool down, and we're in taking care of horses and all the rest of it. So that's why we look like what we do. But however, many years ago, Aingeal Rose was in the Akashic Records and she saw what was going on in these present times. But also she answered questions about the spirit. And one question I remember in particular, when somebody asked a question, we discovered from source that the spirit wasn't necessarily perfect. And that was a shock. It certainly was a shock to me, because I know growing up in Holy Catholic Ireland that the spirit to us was like perfect, and it's the body that wasn't perfect. Now we know, of course, that a lot of those teachings are biased and twisted and all the rest of it, but that's not what we're talking about. What I want to talk about is the beginnings of humanity. And the question is about, if we were perfect in the beginning, what karma was there? If karma is responsible for life on earth, what karma was there that would cause us to be born on earth in the very first place? And that's the question.
Well, I'll give you a little history. This comes from something we were listening to earlier today. We were watching a YouTube interview with some guru, and one of the people in the audience had asked the question, if the reason we keep being reincarnated is because we still have leftover karma, then how did birthing into a body in the beginning, before you created any karma, how did that happen? So, and no one has seemed to be able to answer this gentleman's question, so we thought we'd inquire into Source to see what Source had to say about it. But that also presupposes that we reincarnate because we have karma. So I first want to find out from Source, is that really the case? Do we reincarnate simply because we have karma that we have to work out? So that's the first question.
Okay. So the question we want answered is karma the reason we keep incarnating? So while Aingeal Rose is contemplating that profound question, I want to mention that what came to me, and we're both in the Akashic Records right now and asking that same question, and I found that it's like we have blinders on. And I see it in the etheric, in the sense that, like the way they put blinders on a horse in the old days, the horse and trap, and to keep them focused ahead and not be distracted by stuff that's going on the side. And so we're not seeing the whole picture. That's the first thing. And the second thing then that I saw was that we are dependent on, now from a perception point of view, are dependent on an external force to sustain us. It's like we're not self-sustaining, and for that reason we don't know we can't see the full picture. That's the other thing. And then the final piece of the puzzle that I got, well, for me anyway, was that it's like it's so far back that, and countless generations and countless thousands of years, millions of years have passed, that it's like it's lost to the collective memory effectively. So that's why I'm also further intrigued to find what Aingeal Rose gets with this answer.
Well, what I'm getting is that reincarnation occurs because people still want to have experiences. So what Source is saying is it's less about karma and more about the fact that spirits just want to come down and experience what it's like to be physical. And until they're done with that desire, okay, they'll keep reincarnating, and spirits have their own reasons for reincarnating. Some are because they want to meet certain people again. Some do come in because they want to redo something or become perfect at something or better. But it's not a have to. I don't get that it's a have to. I get that spirits choose to, because until you get to the point where you're all done with the desire to be physical and you're all done with the desire to experience the physical world, you'll just keep coming back in. As long as you do that, until you get to the point where you're not interested anymore in the physical world, then you'll go return to spirit, and you'll do something else. You won't go to a physical world. So karma, for most people, implies that there's something left undone, something that they have to make up for. And Source is saying, well, if you consider there's no judgment in God, there's really nothing to make up for, only in your own mind. But there are spirits that do come back because they do want to meet certain people again and do want to do things better. But a lot of times people think spirits, view the physical world as a nice adventure. Isn't it a nice adventure to come in and be physical and touch and feel and taste and smell and go through all of those human desires? So I don't get that it's a given or a necessity that you reincarnate because you've created karma. Because in Source there's no judgment. So karma is something that we have going on within us in terms of if we want to perfect something, if we want to do better as a spirit, as a soul, if we want to accumulate perfection in some way. That's what karma is about, is what I'm getting. So now you can ask that question.
What question?
Oh my God. God help us, people. Okay. The question about in the beginning.
Yes.
When you first took on a body.
In the beginning.
Was there karma?
Was there karma?
Okay, so let's look at the first descent into matter. That's really what we're asking. Okay. Well, I think in one of the books that I've written, we had talked about the fact that, Source delights when new planets are created. And Source wants them all to become paradises. So what I'm seeing is in the beginning, certain spirits volunteered to come to this planet to check it out. I think we called them the first swirlings. Didn't we remember that?
Indeed, yes.
That we were more etheric, less dense. And as time went on, we descended more and more into physicality when we decided we wanted to stay a while. So in the beginning, this was a new planet that had become physical in the world. Source, some spirits volunteered to come here, check it out, see what it was capable of, and then others to develop it further once you saw the potential. And that's what's been going on. Okay, so there's still things being developed on Earth that weren't before, not all of them so great. But in the beginning, it was a brand new creation. Source delights in new creations and wants, like I said, wants every planet to become a paradise. So the first descent was really the thought and desire to come down, and depending on what a planet's atmosphere is like and the conditions determines what kind of form comes into being. So in other words, there are other planets where there are no physical bodies anywhere. Okay, where the conditions are just, it's okay to be etheric there and live there like that. Where this planet, became more and more dense, so it required the life forms to become more and more dense. And so that's what happened. So it was really just a thought and a desire to come and check out a new planet. It had nothing to do with karma anywhere.
Right. That's what I'm finding too, and I'm getting a further development, let's call it, or a further understanding about what I was saying earlier about the blinders, or blinkers sometimes people call them, that I mentioned earlier. And it's like it's to do with the sense of seeing, or the sense of any of our senses, hearing, smelling, tasting and touching, any of the psychic senses even. They're only in the physical. And where's this going? It's like somebody would put up blinds on their windows, like window shades, to protect from the sun. So I think that part of this descent into matter has to do with the sun, because in a way that's what gives us life really here, or sustains life here, is the sun. And I get the sense that descent into matter has something to do with the sun and the life-giving properties of the sun. But it's also to do with us seeing. Like if it was total darkness, then we couldn't see really in total black darkness. And
But I'm going to disagree about the senses real quick.
Yeah, sure.
Because having been into the spirit world before, while still in a body, when I dematerialized and I saw myself as pure spirit, you do have senses. I mean, they're just expanded and exaggerated. Like your sense of sight is keen, your smell, your taste, all of it. It's all of it all at once.
Well, it's very likely, yeah. I think you're perhaps bringing us into a whole new understanding of spirit. Maybe in spirit we have all of those senses, and perhaps thousands more, and that as we come into the physical body, to do with the sun, being able to see in the light of the sun and touch and smell and adapt to this environment, like you say, it's there that we feel the surface level of the beginnings of humankind on this planet. But
I keep hearing Source.
There's no karma to it. That's what
I keep hearing Source say is, the more you decide to stay a while, okay,
yes,
the denser you get, okay, because if the longer you want to stay, the more physical you have to be. Yeah.
That makes sense.
And there's no judgment in if you stay or you don't. It's just that
makes sense. Yes.
As you see here, we've made a mess of things in a lot of ways. We're not behaving out of just the joy of experiencing and creating. I mean, like you say, as soon as we made all these rules, like even the idea of karma and having to come back to make up for something, it's like a punishment. It's another type of religious belief that really Source says has nothing to do with the way it is, because Source is pure love, joy, and delight. That's all it wants us to experience, and that's why at this particular period in time we're asked to undo all the old paradigm in order for us to move into pure love.
Yes.
And it's really supposed to be about joy and celebration, and when you're really in that, you don't desire to harm. It's not your business that you try to control another person. You delight in the beauty of everything. You naturally would take care of the earth and all things beautiful in it, and be kind to one another, because you'd understand that they're all a creation from Source. You wouldn't be doing any of this control stuff. So we obviously, in order for this planet to become a paradise, we have a long way to go.
Right.
But right now we're in the great cleansing, is what I call it, the great undoing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mentioned in the beginning that Aingeal Rose talked about this back in 2012, and we're now in it. And when I mentioned about climate change, I wasn't joking either, that it is real, and this is also part of this great cleansing. And so,
And we were warned in my first book, right?
Yes. Beware of technology.
What was the name of my first book?
A Time of Change.
In a Time of Change. Back in 2012, Source was warning us about technology and the dangers of technology, and here we are in it. We're in a 5G network technology, which is, I've come to understand, opens doorways to astral entities coming in.
Right.
It also triggers illness and disease So it's a dangerous technology that we've saying, oh boy, yippee yippee, our internet's
and
faster.
in fact, even just to touch on the VAX situation, that's technology that's interfering with our DNA. And
Right.
so beware of the technology is what the advice was
That's
back in
right.
2012, and still more valid today perhaps than ever.
Yep. But that's another show.
That's a whole different ball game altogether. That's again, if you want to come back to our traditional understanding of karma, it's about you get what you pay for, or
Attracts like.
Like attracts
Which
like.
is true.
Yeah, but what
But it's not a punishment from God.
But that's right. But where I'm going with that was that if somebody wants to do something to their own body, that has its own consequences, and let them off with it. And it's not for us to judge one way or another about any of it. And that's part of what Aingeal Rose is saying, to look with an open heart on everything that's going on with the world, and look upon ourselves and the world with forgiveness. In fact, Aingeal Rose, before we finish, just mention about forgiving the world, because that's an important little piece we should end with.
Well, that is what we're being asked to do. I mean, I was told in early 2019 that this is it. This is the time for letting go, forgiving. But we are understanding more and more from Source that when it talks about forgiveness, it does literally mean to forgive the old paradigm, which is a death paradigm. Forgive all ideas of guilt and punishment and sin and judgment and all of those disrespectful things that we've been raised to believe are true. And forgive the world because it doesn't know what it's doing. And the only true reality is that Source is a loving being. It loves everyone. It doesn't judge anyone. And for us to learn how to accept that and move into that particular way of being requires us to let go of all the other. And it's a huge thing that's going on now. And it started with people starting to clear out their homes and moving.
That's right.
You saw evidence, and they're still doing that, where they just get this urge to clean out. And then other people would say, yeah, I've increased my healing and working on myself, with an understanding that something has to change, that they still have leftover things. But we're talking about forgiving a whole paradigm of belief systems and realities that we've been brought up to believe in that simply are not based in love. And so all of those and all of the ways they express themselves we're being asked to forgive. Forgiving means, okay, done, gone, erased.
Okay, that's it for now. Thank you for listening to the hobos here in Southern California.
Well, the other reason we're in our car, tell the truth, is that we're still watching our little grandchildren,
Grandbabies.
helping our daughter out, and you can't get a moment's peace.
That's right.
With a 1.5-year-old and a 3.5-year-old.
Yeah.
So this is where we have to.
This is our office.
This is our cave that we have to run to for some peace and quiet. So here we are. In other words, if we want to get this to you, we have to.
Yeah.
Isolate ourselves for a few minutes.
Yeah. All right. Until next time. Blessings from myself, Ahonu, and from Aingeal Rose.
Yes. Bye.
Bye-bye.
You have been listening to Aingeal Rose and Ahonu on World of Empowerment Radio, your station for practical spirituality in a changing world.